Hello everyone and welcome back to DC Central, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down and reviewing The Flash Season 6 Episode 14, otherwise entitled Death of the Speedforce. And if you have not seen this episode, be sure to do so before proceeding with this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. A couple of things up the top. For one, I would like to say I apologise for this review being a few days late. It just kind of got away from me. And also, secondly, I would like to quickly address the coronavirus situation in relation to the Arrowverse and our shows. Of course, if you've been following the news on Twitter and things like that, you will know that production on The Flash and Batwoman and Supergirl have all been shut down due to the potential risk of the coronavirus, as I believe it was on the set of Riverdale, which of course is another CW show filmed in Vancouver. A crew member on Riverdale was actually suspected with coronavirus, so there is obviously the worry and risk that it could spread onto other sets and things like that, which includes The Flash and things alike. So in regards to how it's going to affect the shows, obviously we do know with this production shutting down, we don't know how long that's going to be for. I believe the statutory is like 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks they'll reassess. But yeah, there could be a slight delay when it comes to the shows in regards to when we get the last few episodes and things like that, as they are still filming them and stuff like that. I believe Supergirl is very, very close to the end of filming, and The Flash is fairly close. It's in like its last couple of episodes. Of course, Supergirl is already facing scheduling issues because of Melissa's pregnancy. This could delay that even further, so there are some things that is kind of like a watch this space kind of thing. So yeah, just be prepared for that in regards to the shows. The shows just taking a bit of a break and there being a bit of a delay just due to obviously this global pandemic that's going on right now. So make sure for you guys as well, you're being careful, staying indoors, avoiding contact as much as possible, and washing your hands, as that is all you can really do at this moment in time. So just wanted to address that off the top. So this episode of The Flash was one that I was very excited about because it's something we've been waiting for quite a long time, which is the return of Wally West. Wally, who hasn't really been on the show properly since Season 4. He did have that one appearance in the Season 5 premiere, but he hasn't really been on the show properly since Season 4 when he left to join the Legends. It's been a while, and I was really excited about this because this seemed to be like a really big Wally episode, and it really was. Wally shows up with a whole array of new powers, and these powers were really exciting to see because it just shows how much Wally has grown and matured ever since we last saw him. He had this power which I don't think it was time remnants, but it allowed him to basically project many different versions of himself to work individually from one another. So it was kind of similar to a time remnant, but he was able to create 6 or 7 of them at one time, which was really cool and really exciting to see. Really well handled with CGI wise. We also got to see him create this lotus flower out of Speedforce energy. And he also has a very specific way of speaking to the Speedforce, where he can actually speak to the Speedforce directly and also send his spirit into the Speedforce without his physical body having to be there itself, unlike Barry. So really cool powers from Wally, really awesome stuff on display, and it just showed again how much he's kind of grown and matured as a speedster as time has gone on since we last saw him on Legends of Tomorrow. He's also a very different person now. Wally, personality-wise, he's much more zen, he's a lot more, again, mature, and you feel like he is a different character, and I absolutely love the direction they took with Wally, because I didn't expect them to go in this direction. I didn't expect him to be this kind of almost more mature than Barry, I'd say even more so, speedster. I didn't expect them to go that route, because what I love about this episode, and specifically this one particular scene, is there's an argument between Wally and Barry where Wally confesses to Barry that the reason why he's actually here is because he needs to speak to Barry about the Speedforce actually dying, and of course that relates to the title, Death of the Speedforce. And this is when Barry has to reveal that he's kind of responsible for what's happening. And what I love about this is that it leads to probably my favorite scene in the episode, which is Wally's argument with Barry, where he just completely says what the audience has been saying for years, which is, why didn't you call me? I was here, I could have helped you. Why did you shove me aside like you always do? Why do you just not rely on me when you absolutely should? And it was just great because this frustration from Wally, it's so warranted and it's so earned at this point. The reason he left the show in season 4 was because he kept getting shoved aside and forgotten about. And the fact that he's still kind of bringing this up and the fact that it's still relevant now, which it absolutely is, I love the fact that he's still kind of lingering on that, because again, it's something that has never really been addressed on the show, and I love that. I love the fact that they finally brought that back, and the fact that they actually had to have a discussion about it rather than just, again, shoving it aside. It was really great, and for me, that was the best scene in the episode, and Keenan's acting in this was absolutely top-notch. So with the death of the Speed Force, this essentially means that now the Speed Force is dead as of the end of this episode. We got to see Michelle Harris return as Barry's mother, who of course is like the personification of the Speed Force to Barry. We got to see her pass away yet again. And this means the Speed Force is now officially dead, at least the traditional Speed Force as we know it. And this now means that both Barry and Wally and every other, respective speedster only have sort of a limited amount of Speed Force energy they can use, so they have to use it sparingly. So that's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of episodes, to see how they actually do that, and if we see certain situations where Barry may have to use his speed, but then he may choose not to. I think it could be quite interesting to see how they handle that. So I'm very excited to see if this actually has an effect on Barry as a hero. It was also really nice just to get another scene with Joe and Wally. Obviously, it has been a while since we had a really good scene with these two, and anytime Joe gets to really, play the dad role, it's a really good scene because Jesse L. Martin's just really good with all that stuff. So to get a nice scene between them two, we got a couple of nice scenes between them in this episode, and that was really nice to see. It was a shame that technically we got no real scene between Wally and Iris, because of course the Iris was in the mirror. We have the mirror Iris right now in the real world, whereas our real Iris is in the mirror dimension, so we didn't actually get a proper, kind of brother-sister reunion between Iris and Wally, which was a bit of a shame, but of course that's just how the cookie crumbles in this case, how the story continues. But yeah, it was nice to have that nice little scene with Joe and Wally, just to kind of, give us those moments. And of course we did have the return of Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, in this episode. He has now somehow taken over and somewhat possessed the body of Nash Wells. So the Wells that we see is of course Nash, but he seems to be Eobard Thawne. He seems to have taken over his body in some respects. We don't quite know how that works yet, but this is heavily going to lead into the next episode. We do see that they actually capture Thawne. The scene between Thawne and Cisco in this episode was fantastic. Their kind of really intense fight scene was really great, and this of course leads to the capturing of Eobard, who's now back in Star Labs, and he's going to play a big role in the next episode, which I'm very excited to see. I've not actually seen the promo for next week's episode, so I don't actually know how that's going to play out, but I'm very excited to see how that happens. It's always great to have Eobard back. Wondering what kind of role he'll play in the larger context of the season. I don't think he's going to play that big of a role. I think it could be this episode and then he might be gone, but still really cool idea, and I actually think this could lead to actually a bit of a teaming up between Barry and Eobard for the next thing that I'm going to mention. So we've known for a little while now that Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, doesn't actually work in the real Speed Force. He of course sort of thrives within the negative Speed Force. He created his own version of the Speed Force that he can live in forever, so he's not affected by this death of the Speed Force. He's not affected by it whatsoever. But Barry, of course, is. So this is where Barry comes up with the idea to actually create his own Speed Force like Eobard, and I believe this is them trying to adapt the storyline, which is fairly new. I believe it was in Rebirth for the Flash, where there are multiple different versions of the Speed Force, and I think that's what they're trying to delve into here. Perhaps Barry will get his own one, maybe, if they somehow get Wally back at some point, or maybe they can just explain it another way, that Wally will get his own version of the Speed Force, that sort of thing. I think that's where this is going. So I think, over the back half of the season, we're going to see a lot of experimenting and a lot of really interesting ways of how Barry is going to get his own version of the Speed Force, like the Negative Force. Now, the very ending cliffhanger scene that we get with the Flash usually, it was a very interesting one, as we see Camilla, who had earlier in the episode taken a photo of Mirror Iris and Wally, and this basically leads to Mirror Iris showing up to capture Camilla and send her into the mirror dimension. She shows up with the mirror gun, shoots Camilla, and if I hadn't have actually seen the photos for next week's episode, I actually thought Camilla was dead at first. I didn't actually realize, until I saw the scene again, that she actually shot her with the mirror gun. I didn't actually realize that. But yeah, Camilla, she's not dead. She is in next week's episode, but it seems like we're going to have like a mirror version of Camilla going alongside Iris. So I'm very interested to see where that goes and how she maybe interacts with Cisco and how that all goes about and how she's sort of been brought into the plan of Eve McCulloch. I'm very excited to see how that all plays out. On the whole, though, I really enjoyed Death of the Speedforce. I'd have to maybe think about it, but this could be a contender for my episode of the season so far. Definitely top 3 for sure. But I really enjoyed this episode. Having Wally back was something that I've just been wanting for ages, and I didn't realize how much I was going to love Wally's return until I actually just saw him in this episode because of how greatly he has developed and considerably he has developed over time, which I really appreciated. And also I really love just delving into the Speedforce. You know, it's some of the most interesting stuff on the Flash is all of like the speedster lore stuff, and they really delved into that with this episode, which was really nice and really fun. And I think that the way they're setting up the rest of the season with the potential new Speedforce coming in and how Reverse Flash is going to fold into that, they've just got a lot of really good, interesting stuff on the Flash at the moment. Well, I do feel like there is a bit too much going on, especially because, you know, a character like Ralph, he's not been on the show for a few episodes now, and he's obviously supposed to be a regular, so I think that they are trying to balance a little too much at the moment, which is leaving some storylines to get completely lost. I am still very much enjoying this season, and I think that they are doing a lot of great stuff. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. It'll help me out a lot. And share this video with any other DC fans who may enjoy this kind of content. And as always, guys, if you want to see more DC content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload from me. And hope to see you guys again next time.